So, music or social studies? Puppetry or autobiography? Drama or mathematical symmetry? Art, visual art, or part of a refraction light unit in science? Well, what if it could be both? Really, truly and authentically both. Not one at the expense of another, not dumbing one down to do the arts, but what if the arts were an intrinsic part of the learning experience and the assessment process? Well, that's what we're trying to do at my school right now. You know, growing up, I always felt that the arts were somehow extra, because they happened mostly outside of school, right? But when they did happen in school, I can remember that feeling of excitement. Today is art. Today, Miss Frances comes with the guitars. And I can remember feeling more competent than usual. And I really remember that feeling of full engagement. Well, fast forward 40 years or so, and I'm a teacher. I teach music and dance and drama to kindergarten through grade 7 students in my little public school across the highway. And I teach music and dance and drama, 3 things that I absolutely love. And in this little public school of 300 students, over the last 2 decades, we've really built a beautiful culture of the arts, one where they're really honored and celebrated on a regular basis. And I feel very, very grateful to work there all the time. But most of the performing arts opportunities for learning were still happening in my studio or in performance. And the visual arts opportunities were happening independently in all the classrooms. So enter Art Starts in Schools, a nonprofit BC-based arts and education organization. You probably know them, if you have children, as the people who bring the opera to your school. But they were embarking on a brand new mission, one where they were going to pilot an arts-based approach to teaching and learning in BC schools. Well, we heard about this, right? And we thought, yes, this is for us. This is a perfect fit. So we applied, and were we ecstatic when we were chosen as one of 6 schools in BC to pilot this approach. Yes! All right. And then we thought, now what? Well, now we're in year 2 of a 3-year pilot. The first year was all about planning, getting things in place, meeting our infusion teaching artist, Andrea Clan, a beautiful mixed media visual artist, mostly working in oils, but extremely proficient in all areas of visual art. This year is our 2nd year, and this year we have a small team of teachers working with their students to pilot this arts-integrated or infused approach to teaching and learning in their classrooms. In the 3rd year, every teacher and every student in our school will be involved in this approach. And after that, we hope to build capacity for this approach throughout our district until we've made, well, a radical shift. A radical shift in our school culture, one where the arts are not extra or outside of, or a costly frill, or if there's enough time and money, maybe. But one where the arts are an integral part of the learning experience. Now, this was an easy sell for me, right? I'm a performing arts teacher. I'm all over this. But I can completely understand why many people would scratch their heads and wonder, why would you even do this? Why take subjects that are clearly delineated and are doing a very good job delivering excellent learning in all these subjects? Why mess with that? Why fix it if it ain't broke, kind of thing, right? Well, we don't think education's broken, not by any stretch of the imagination. But 21st century research really is providing a wealth of data that supports the idea that the arts are a really essential piece of the learning puzzle. Work by people like Daniel Levitin. He's the author of, among other things, This Is Your Brain on Music, which I love. I love that title. And he and other researchers have found something really, really interesting, that the arts are truly universal. In other words, we have yet to uncover a culture or civilization on this planet that doesn't have a strong and thriving and essential arts practice. Just think about that for a minute. And Oliver Sacks, who's a really well-known neuroscientist, he wrote Awakenings. You might remember the movie, Robin Williams. Yeah. And he found that early music education in a person's life has profound therapeutic benefits, especially later on if our brains are dealing with disease and damage. And Eric Jensen just published a paper called The Arts with the Brain in Mind, and he found that the primary benefit of arts education is the development of complex neurobiological systems, especially neurological pathways in the brain. And right now at Virginia Tech, a neuroscientist researcher named Ulrich Kirk is working with functioning MRI technology. And he's taking his subjects and he's showing them paintings. For example, paintings by Degas, like L'Étoile, the star. And they're measuring what happens to the brain of the people who, when they look at these paintings, just look at them. And what they're finding is that the part of the brain that is activated when you dance fires up just by looking at a painting of people dancing. And when they showed them Japanese calligraphy, the part of the brain that fires up when the wrist flexes to hold a brush also fires up, just by looking at the visual art. And I could show you lots more research, but it seems pretty clear that the arts might not be just a nice idea, but maybe they're essential. Okay, so research is great, it's important, but just for a minute, think about something you love to do. Really think about it. Is it a standard experience? Is it always the same every time you do it? Or is it something that's grown over time with you? Something that's deepened? Something that still holds surprises or the chance to get better at it? Is it better with others? Or is it something you really like to do in the quiet and solitude of your own space? And do you lose track of time? Because you see, the really cool thing about the arts is that they are collaborative and collective. You know, they are more fun with others often, but they can also be amazing as a solo pursuit. I mean, the collective part, think about being in a band, right? Or being in a play, or painting a mural with people. Or think of yourself alone with your sketchbook in nature. The arts are never, ever standard experience. That first question I asked you. The arts, by their very nature, force us to go deeper, to go sideways, right? To try, fail, reboot, and try again, and it's all part of the experience. And lastly, that question about do you lose track of time? Well, the arts are an expressway into that transcendent state of being that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi calls flow. We all know it. You know that moment where you are so fully present and engaged in what you're doing that time just doesn't exist? We call it fun. But neuroscientists call it full and total neurological engagement in the brain. And as educators, we're recognizing that this state of flow, this place where we are fully engaged as a human being on all levels, is a place we want to take our students to, right? Doesn't that just make sense? And how powerful and efficient would this be in learning something new? So this all sounds wonderful, right? Excellent. We take the arts, they give us flow, we put them into social studies, and we're done. Yeah. I mean, as you can imagine, we're finding that marrying our vision and our goals with our actual practice it's pretty challenging, right? Not only because we've all been trained, we've all gone to school a certain way, and despite our best knowledge of what's new and what we know we should be doing, there's this fear, right? There's this fear. If we put something like, in the arts into something like, say, math, maybe we'll water down some really important key concepts in math. Or, maybe if we try to force, something into the arts the other way, that it's going to be really artificial and just really forced. So what we're doing is we're thinking about it like brewing a cup of tea. And that's where the Art Starts program comes in. It's called infusion. And if you imagine having a beautiful cup or teapot and you put in your fresh boiling water and you just randomly take a bunch of tea bags, something that tasted good when you were young, something that's in your cupboard, something that's convenient, and you stick them all in there and let them steep, well, you're likely to come up with something rather bitter and unpalatable, actually, right? But now imagine if you had that same boiling water and you carefully and purposefully picked the ingredients that you wish to put into your infusion. Things that you knew would go well together, that would enhance and support and make it better. You could create something wonderful and unique. That's what we're trying to do in my school. We're trying to tease out those arts learnings from those, what we call the core subjects, right? From those academic subjects. And on the other hand, too, we're looking at the arts curricula and saying, what's already there? What makes sense? What connects to the arts? And it's actually proving to be more difficult than we thought, as I said, because also we all have to speak the same language, right? We all have to have the same skill set, and we have to understand what each other is saying. And so that's why we've set up this 3-year project, this kind of boot camp, if you will, where my role as an art specialist now is not just with my students, but with my colleagues, where I'm working with them, and hopefully even more as we get deeper into this, to support each other on ways that we can bring the arts into everything we're teaching, ways that I can support them with their facility as arts educators. Because let's face it, most elementary teachers feel really, really confident as facilitators of numeracy and literacy and science, right? But that arts learning, again, because we sort of feel it's sort of separate, sort of extra, we're not feeling as confident there. And that's why this program has been so exciting for us, because we're working together to do this for our students. And speaking of students, let me just quickly tell you a little bit about Jared. Jared's a grade 5 student, and for him, written output is really challenging. And he's studying a novel right now. And his teacher offered the whole class the option for one of the chapters, rather than giving a set of comprehension questions or a summary, the things we've done lots, or a web. The teacher said, you can show me what you know about this chapter through drawing. But you have to do it with this criteria. You have to show using perspective. You have to use foreground, background, relative size of objects and people, and you have to show how the status of the characters changed in this chapter. Well, Jared ran with this, and he created a response that was absolutely outstanding and quite unique. He never could have done this with words alone. And in order to do it properly, he had to have a working knowledge of the artistic elements of perspective and the literary concept of status. His teacher helped him to find a new entryway into that learning. And he was able then to have a new exit point to show what he knew. We're hoping that by having this arts-based approach to learning, that our students will be building strong and powerful arts toolkits alongside really steady and powerful academic skills. And think about your own work, just for a minute. Don't you want, if you're starting a new business, don't you want a powerful logo as well as a really marketable product and service? Don't you want your marketplace or your showroom to really, truly reflect the services you're offering? The more facility we all have with what we call the arts, the more precise our own working toolkits will be. So today, when you leave this conference, I hope that you'll go out there and start to notice the arts. I mean, really notice them. Not just those that are deconstructed into their more familiar and formal elements and shapes, but the arts as they touch your work and your play and your interior landscape, because our children need us to be literate consumers and creators of art. They need us to honor and celebrate it, not just as something that artists do, but as something that humans do. You know, Stan mentioned Einstein earlier today, and I'm going to bring him out again, kind of the same quote, actually. And it was one that gave me great hope as an arts educator for years. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Yes, we win. But I'm now wondering if maybe it's not so much that one is more important than the other, but that we recognize and truly honor the importance of both. So that when we look at those first slides from earlier, we see puppetry as autobiography. We see math in the form of symmetry through drama. We see an oil pastel representation of northern lights as part of a light refraction science unit. And we see cultural exploration or social studies through music.